Welcome to your course tour of Living by Chemistry 2nd Edition Update. Thank you for selecting this book to use in your classroom. This book was created for the high school general education, honors, and/or pre-AP chemistry course. Our goal is to partner with you to provide the tools necessary to boost students' interest in chemistry and instill lifelong critical thinking skills. Our goals for today's session are to make sure that you are well prepared for using the Living by Chemistry program in your classroom. This in-service is designed to introduce you to the pedagogy of the student edition and give you the opportunity to take an in-depth look at the other resources that came with your textbook. Please note, the advice in this video series serves only as a starting point. As you become more familiar with the textbook, the suggestions made may or may not apply to your unique needs. Before we get started, let's review the materials you've received with your order. If you have ordered at least a class set, you should have received a teacher's edition, an ExamView test bank, and the teacher's resource flash drive. It is possible that you received a URL and a password to download the flash drive materials digitally versus receiving an actual flash drive. Please note that some components such as ebooks, Launchpad, or Sapling are not automatically added to your adoption. These components require additional purchase. If there is anything you have not received, please contact your local sales representative. We also offer every teacher access to our Classroom Compass site. This site provides an opportunity for additional training and information. At BFW, we love to hear all about the different ways you use your book in the classroom. Please log into our site at classroomcompass.bfwpub.com and join our discussion boards to share ideas, strategies, and concerns with your colleagues and the textbook authors. Let's start by taking a look at the student edition. The textbook is divided into units: alchemy, smells, weather, toxins, fire, and showtime. Each unit is divided into chapters, and the chapters are divided into lessons. The lessons are each expected to take one class period and include an activity or lab for your students to complete. This will make planning your course much easier. For the 2nd edition update, we have updated the periodic table of elements to include the recently chosen names of elements. Each chapter opens with a broad introduction to the chemistry concepts your students will study. At the beginning of each chapter, you will also find a list of learning objectives that will help keep your students focused. You can use learning objectives in a student journal to help keep them organized or as flashcards to use as a study tool. Each lesson opens with a Think About It box, which prepares your students for the lesson. Use these at the beginning of the lesson to introduce the goals and topic of that lesson. Before or after you've completed the lesson activity with your student, you can assign them the Exploring the Topic reading in the student edition. We have a concise 2 to 3 pages of text so your students are not intimidated by the content. And there are a lot of graphics within the text. These terms are bold, which is helpful if you like to use a word wall or flashcards with your students. At the end of each lesson, we provide you with exercises to do in your class. Reading questions make sure your students have understood the main ideas of the lesson, while reason and apply give your students the opportunity to practice problem solving and using evidence-based reasoning to justify answers. At the end of each chapter, we provide a summary of all the lessons. You should use this before your end of chapter test to make sure your students are prepared, or at least tell them to use it as a study tool when preparing for any tests. While engineering projects are not new, we have moved them from our online materials to the end of each unit to make them readily available. These engineering projects put the concept of the unit into action. Let's continue and take a look at your teacher resource materials that have come along with your adoption of Living by Chemistry. In the first page of the lesson, you will find an overview of an activity you'll do with your students. It starts with a suggestion for how to split up your class and a key question. You can use this key question to introduce the topic. The key ideas outline what your students will be learning, and the learning objective gives you a checklist to follow to use in your lesson plans. More materials in the lesson planning pages include a focus on understanding, which gives some background on the chemistry concepts your students will study. There is also an in-class summary that summarizes what activity your students will complete. Then we provide you with setup instructions for the course. We follow the 5E model in our lesson planning. The first is to engage, designed to engage your students with a lesson. This will take about 5 minutes. Whenever you see the TRM button, this is a sign you should check your teacher resource flash drive for some additional materials. For this particular example, we provide Chem Catalyst problem transparencies and a PowerPoint presentation to use. The answers to the Chem Catalyst is in red, and you will find all answers within the teacher's edition will be in red. Finally, we also provide you with some discussion questions you can use. Our lesson moves into Explore, which is when the students will complete the lab. We give you a worksheet in your teacher resource materials to help complete this component. You should then spend time to explain and elaborate with your students for about 15 minutes. For this part, we provide you with 2 different transparencies. We also provide you with some discussion questions and key points to cover with your students to help check for understanding. You can finish your lesson evaluating what your students have learned. You can check in and use this as an exit slip. We also give you a homework assignment to use and possible answers to the questions at the end of the chapter. The Teacher's Resource Flash Drive contains all of your additional resources. I've listed them for you here on the screen. This is a valuable resource that should be kept in a safe place. You can also download these resources from our password-protected teacher site. This concludes your course tour of Living by Chemistry 2nd edition update. We hope you have enjoyed your time and are well on your way to preparing successful lessons. If you have any questions about resource materials, please contact your sales representative. If you have questions about any text material presented in this course, please contact highschoolpd@bfwpub.com. Thank you very much.